I'm Nick Markovich. My topic was applications and interviews. So I took my article from an online restaurant trade magazine called Restaurant Hospitality. And the actual article is called Weeding Out the Wackos. And so basically, the author attempts to confront the most common problem when interviewing applicants for a restaurant job. Although, after reading through the article, it can pretty much be applied to every field. This just happens to be from a restaurant trade magazine. But these are pretty universal ideas that she has about skillfully interviewing. So she basically confronts the most common problem when interviewing applicants, which is managers tend to hire based on someone's skill set or someone's experience, as opposed to the person's personality or character. And that's a problem because, as one guy puts it, that she quotes in the article, we hire someone for what they know, and then we end up firing them for who they are. So as to not fall into this trap, she argues that it's more important to hire based on a person's character, with the idea that you can pretty much train any competent person to do the job, but you can't teach someone personality or character. So character and personality, a good person, first and foremost, is what we should be looking for when we're hiring. Again, it's pretty universal, restaurants or any field, obviously. And then she goes on to describe how you're going to find the good people, how you're going to weed out the crazy people and actually zero in on the good people. This isn't easy, it takes a lot of time and effort, a lot of screening, sometimes background checks, checking a person's references, maybe putting them having them go through a trial. This article just focuses on the interview part of the search. And it sort of breaks it down into a few steps. The first of that would be coming up with a list of the most important traits for your company. So in other words, you think about your most important employees and what makes them so special, especially in the unique environment of your company. Whether it's their willingness to stay late or that they're proactive. The boss isn't meant to tell them what to do all the time. They're just always, looking for something to do. Once you come up with a list of a few traits that are most important to your company, then you can go ahead and try to generate questions that strive to reveal these traits in the candidates that you're interviewing. And then the best way of doing that is to ask questions that prompt the candidates to talk about real-life experiences, real-life past experiences. And this isn't to be confused with asking hypothetical questions. A lot of times employers will ask hypothetical questions like, if this happened to you, how would you react? But then that kind of allows them to use their imagination and sort of kind of fabricate, kind of craft this nice sounding response that they know the employer wants to hear. It's just like this fairy tale. It's hypothetical. They can say whatever they want, and everyone's going to say what the employer wants to hear, right? So that's not really going to weed any of the wackos out. So you really want to ask them questions that get them to talk about past experiences. Obviously, you don't want to ask them too many yes or no questions either, because again, they're just going to be kind of easy to answer. Everyone's going to say the same thing. Are you on time? Yes. Everyone's going to say that. So you got to get them talking about themselves, and in terms of things that they really did, because then it's going to be more honest, more truthful, and ultimately more revealing of the true person. And the third step would be, once you ask these poignant questions and get them to talk about themselves in terms of their past experiences, be persistent. Ask a lot of follow-up questions. A lot of times they'll be, maybe kind of shy, kind of timid. Ask them more detailed follow-up questions to get as many vivid details as you can about their these past scenarios that you're beginning to talk about. Okay, so the article then leaves us with 15 of the most important personality traits for the professional job atmosphere. You know, I thought this was going to be kind of a stupid list of your cliche, nondescript terms like nice, hardworking, always on time. But actually, I thought it was a pretty good list. I had it right here. So these are the so-called 15 most important personality traits for a professional environment, restaurant environment, or anything really. Okay, analytical ability, assertiveness, competitiveness, decision-making, detail orientation, energy, flexibility, manageability, influence, others orientation, persistence, responsibility, risk-taking, social boldness, self-discipline. So as you can see, these are a little bit more specific. They're more explicit, meaningful terms. And I think once you can kind of generate a list of a few of these that are very important to your restaurant, I think you'll be more focused in finding people who have these traits. You know, if they start talking about themselves as being nice and hardworking and on time, you can kind of like prod them further. Be like, well, how do you deal with management? Are you easily coached? Are you sensitive to criticism? Or, you know, how assertive are you? Are you a competitive person? These are a little bit more like, you know, kind of like getting to the bottom of something, cutting to the core, and seeing who they really are. You know, nothing generic here. It's very like specific, meaningful traits. And then it also leaves us with a very useful list of 9 essential interview questions. And some of these I thought were pretty good. I have a few examples here. Maybe I can even like act out a couple scenarios for you, just so you know I'm not just reading what I already wrote in the essay. First question here is, tell me about a time when you were totally stressed out at work. What did you do? So it kind of forces them to like almost speak about, you know, themselves. People always want to like say all these positive things about themselves, but here they're actually kind of challenged to think about a time when they were like, you know, pissed off. And you know, you can kind of gauge what their tolerance is for stress. You know, how do they deal with stress? Are they like easily stressed out? You know, based on what they say, how they respond to this, you can really like find out what makes them tick, what their limits are. Questions 2 and 3. Tell me about your best day and how it made you feel. Tell me about your worst day and how it made you feel. And this person points out that, so the author points out that these questions give you a lot of insight into what motivates a candidate, while the question of the worst day kind of gives you a more like realistic idea of what their boiling point is. It says here, you know, what again what their limits are, because these are all, you know, very important. You know. Question 4: what is your previous supervisor going to tell me about you? This is another good one because it's getting the person to kind of think of themselves in a third person, which sometimes leads people to be a little bit more objective about themselves, instead of just saying, I think this of myself. I mean, everyone thinks everything great about themselves, but if they're forced to speak about themselves from someone else's point of view, a friend or a coworker, I think they're more inclined to be honest about themselves, a little bit more objective. This one I thought was pretty interesting. I don't know if this would actually work as well as they claim here, but I thought this was kind of funny. Questions 5 and 6. Question 5, what's the worst thing you've ever done? Question 6 would be a follow-up. What's really the worst thing you've ever done? Apparently this guy claims that just by merely asking the same question twice, you can sometimes get people to kind of fess up to a little bit more than they divulged the first time around. You know, so like if I'm interviewing young Pip Chitsky here. He's applying for the new Garden J cook position at my restaurant. So Pip, tell me about the worst thing you've ever done.
I've never really done anything wrong. I guess one time a coworker of mine dropped a side towel and I didn't tell him when he dropped it. No, Pip, really, like, what's the worst thing you've ever done? It has to be something worse than that. dropped his side towel, I stabbed him with a pork rib that I'd been sharpening all morning.
See, all it took was just kind of reiterating the question again. Suddenly, Pitt divulges this horrible, tragic act, inflicted upon his coworker. He stabbed him just because he dropped the side towel. You didn't get it the first time around. You kind of prodded at him a little bit more, and then suddenly he comes clean, and you know not to hire him, or to hire him. Maybe that's the type of establishment that you try to foster. Let's see. Tell me about the worst customer you've ever dealt with. Tell me about the worst customer you've ever dealt with. So I could see that being pretty helpful too, because again, you kind of see what makes this person tick. Are they the type of person who can deal with stress, which is very important in this industry, or is it someone who's just going to kind of get peeved by the littlest thing? For instance, I'm interviewing Irma Shuntig about her worst customer she's ever dealt with. Hi, Irma. So, tell me about the worst customer you've ever had to deal with.
One time, a customer asked for a recommendation for an entree, and I told him to get the hot wings with blue cheese. Instead, he ordered the hot wings with ranch dressing. I was so upset I tried very hard to maintain my composure until he left, which I did. I didn't cry. I maintained my composure and did my job.
Yeah, it's like, so there, she thinks she answered the question well. She said she maintained her composure. But, you kind of like read between the lines, think about what she really said. Well, she was upset. She was crushed because a customer didn't take her recommendation. He did. He took the recommendation. He went with the hot wings, but he didn't go with the blue cheese. He went with ranch dressing because he likes ranch dressing more than blue cheese. Big deal. Why would she be upset about that? You ask a question like that, and suddenly you really learn that this person is a wacko, as this article likes to label it. So I hope this was helpful. The main point to take away is really if you're interviewing to find a great employee, don't so much focus on their skills and their knowledge and their experience. First, try to find someone who's a good person, someone who has a good personality, works well with others, and that they're going to fit in with your place. They got to be a good person first and foremost. And secondly, the way you do that is by asking thoughtful, poignant questions that lead the candidates in the interview to talk about themselves based on real prior experiences, so that they're more inclined to be honest and show their true colors. All right, thank you.